Hello, welcome to the Art by Casey Brom YouTube page. Today our first video is going to be me drawing a suggestion we had off Instagram. It's going to be two parts, and so this is part one. Enjoy. Alright everyone, so today on Instagram I asked for a few suggestions of something to draw in Photoshop and make a video. My favorite one, and a few people's favorite ones, was the goblin learning to fly fish. Now, I don't know about a goblin learning to fly fish or what that would look like, but we can give it a go. So I'm in Photoshop here. I got kind of everything running on a separate screen here. And I always start with just kind of mapping things out and figuring out where everything's going to go. I'm thinking we're just going to kind of focus on one part of the canvas here. And kind of develop our character. I don't know why I'm having such a problem navigating the screen. Alright, so what I'm going to do is just kind of start figuring out what a goblin fly fishing would look like. First of all, he's probably got a stellar fly fishing hat. Now I don't know if this guy's going to be like learning to fly fish, or if he already knows how to fly fish, or just like a fly fishing goblin. Maybe a goblin's got to have more of a, let's make my brush a bit bigger, more of a pointy face. But I don't know if he's going to be like just going out fly fishing, or maybe he's just like really good at it already, or I don't know. We'll kind of see what he ends up looking like. I'm thinking he's probably pretty ugly. He's a goblin. He's got this big nose. His lips just escape out from underneath that nose. And I'm thinking he's probably got some fairly human features, but just kind of gnarly looking. Maybe like a few wispy kind of hairs coming off there. I mean, he's a fly fisherman, so he's got to look kind of awesome, but kind of grubby. Yeah, I'm thinking this guy's starting to look like someone, he's been fly fishing for his whole life, maybe, but he's a goblin, so he still likes gold and jewels and stuff. So maybe he's got some earrings in there, and his ear comes like that, and it's hard to kind of decide if I wanted to make a whole scene until I know what just this goblin's face even looks like. His eyes are probably going to be way too close together just to help with kind of the ugly factor. Yeah, something like that. That's looking kind of fun. And this hat, yeah, it's got a big hat top on it, and some sort of brim, and like, I don't know, a feather maybe. I don't know. He's pretty classy looking. I mean, he's a fly fisherman, I guess, so maybe he's a little hoity-toity. Anyways, let's just kind of imagine he's got, his body coming down. No, pot belly for sure. Just kind of hanging out. And he probably wears like, I don't know. It's hard to decide, like, is he going to be a modern fly fishing goblin, or like a, historic fly fishing goblin? So he's probably got a vest on, though. Either way, he's just kind of like one of those guys. Except for it doesn't quite do up, and he's just hanging over his gut here. I'm just going to turn this up a little bit. Get a bit of a, oh, okay, that's a bit extreme. Maybe his vest kind of fits. Oh yeah, and it bunches up here. Maybe he'll be holding up like his catch, or yeah, maybe just like a few slimy. Oh, he's a fly fisherman, so he probably doesn't kill fish, Not that, I mean, I'm a fly fisherman and I kill fish, but maybe this guy doesn't. He's kind of got these sort of wimpy looking arms. There we go. And there, and this is like just his fishing pole coming up through his hand here. And he's kind of like, what are you doing? What are you doing in my spot? This is my fishing hole. I've been fishing here my whole life. He's like, what's up? I like how he's kind of got his sleeves showing. I think he should also be wearing like a low cut shirt. Because he's kind of a slob. There we go. And like his shirt underneath only comes to here. Oh, he's looking pretty good. And like his gross belly button's hanging out. Now, I don't know. Probably just like waders. But they're like waist waders that are tied on with a rope or something. Or, you know, maybe he's fancy. Maybe he's got like a fancy kind of buckle and a belt. And yeah, there we go. He's looking pretty cool. He looks like he's ready. So he's got probably one of those fuzzy patches. You know, classic fuzzy patches with some flies in there. And his shirt's, this one's off kilter. Vest comes up. It's bulky. He's looking pretty sweet. Just up the size of this guy a little bit. One of the best things about Photoshop, the undo button. So I'm just going to kind of give the background a bit of tone, just to start. I'm not worried about getting some on him or anything. Just getting some on there. He's looking kind of cool. Now I don't know what I'm going to do with all this extra space, so I'm probably just going to end up kind of cropping it or something. I like kind of a chunky background these days. I think it looks pretty fun. It's fun to paint over top of, so I think we're just going to kind of crop this. I don't need all this extra stuff. There we go. That's more a good proportion for what we need to accomplish here. There we go. Then what I'll start doing is I'll use the same brush, just shrink it down. This is kind of a charcoal-y kind of a brush. And I'll turn the opacity back up a bit. I'm just going to start kind of carving in all the different shapes and give it some tone. And this is kind of like a underpainting, I guess, where you just start getting some of the kind of shapes. I'm just gonna start drawing in here. He's got kind of a big brow, so these shadows are gonna be pretty intense. And you can always bring this back down, back up or down, kind of work in both directions. But I'm just gonna kind of get this in here. Opacity can come back down a little bit. Size can go up. I find I get stuck in these small brush moments, and then I just kind of don't get enough done at a time. He's going to be kind of green, and we'll get there, but it's just kind of nice to play with all your values first. And that rod, you know, all this other stuff, like the fishing rod and everything, it'll all come. So I'm not too worried about that. Start getting kind of these shapes. That nose is just like so extreme. I love it. All right. This has got to get a bit darker in here, a few passes. This should all be pretty dark under the hat, so let's turn this back up. That's maybe a bit much. And the hat itself will be fairly bright. So I'm just going to go for kind of like top light coming straight down. I'm not worried about it being kind of chunky and messy to start, because I can always clean it up more and more as we go. And how much you want to render it at this stage, in this kind of black and white stage, it's totally up to you, because you can do all this with color too. I just kind of like to figure, recently, I mean, I'm always changing how I do things, but recently I kind of like to just figure out a lot of these kind of values and stuff first. And then I can start messing around with all the tricky color stuff. Kind of starting to look like he has facial hair in a bigger way than I initially intended. But That's kind of fun. Maybe I'll have some hair kind of wisping, kind of coming in the back too. Just like cut straight across. We'll bring that around. Shade all this. And yeah, he's going to be kind of like ugly and green. And you can use your eraser as kind of a tool to start developing some of this shadow and highlight as well. Now a lot of this is actually going to be under the shade of the hat, so I can kind of knock these down a little bit. There we go, just to kind of over everything now. So I already started with kind of a gray background, so nothing on here is totally white yet. I'll have to add the white like right on top at a different stage. I don't always mess around with the opacity quite so much, but I do find it is kind of helpful for building all the layers. I'm not always really good with brush pressure on Photoshop, but you'll see I do use it quite a bit still. I'm still pushing harder sometimes and holding off some other times. It depends on the brush you're using too. Some really take to pressure sensitivity better. This one I just like the way it draws, so I just use it. So I was going to have that kind of pants waders. They need to bunch more at the belt, just because they're probably like ill-fitting. Probably used to have ones that fit good, and then they got fat. And now they just don't fit so good anymore. So they kind of bulge out, top and bottom. It's just like his belly kind of bulges out, top and bottom. And they're waders, so they're probably like wrinkly and kind of a gross material. Alright, the belt can be dark colored. And it's really not meant for these waders either, so it's kind of just chucked on there. It's got a shiny belt buckle. I'm not sure why. Alright. So like I said, we can use the eraser too to kind of pull some of these sort of highlights out. One of the things I like about this pen that I'm using, I have the Huion Canvas 24 Pro tablet, and it comes with their pen, and I like it, the pen, because it has these hotkeys right on the pen where I can switch between brush and eraser and right click with it, which is just awesome. Alright, now I'm going to add the fishing rod. I'm just going to add it by, it's way too fat, isn't it? Yeah. Well, it can kind of be a cane rod, that's fun. There'll be some guides kind of on it. I'll draw these on after. There, this guy is looking pretty cool. So I'm going to go back to the brush, and I'm just going to knock the size down a whole bunch. You'll see that's the other thing I'm doing a lot of, is just playing around with the size of my brush. Even like, you know, just enough to like make it look a little bit more natural, just like you'd be switching how hard you push on a paintbrush or whatever, just to get a bit of change in size. It just becomes part of the motion. The motion of the ocean. Alright. This fishing rod looks like it was just slapped together. He's probably been using it for, 100 years or something. Who knows? How long does a goblin live? I don't know. Alright, so I'm just going to keep throwing that on there. Alright. That's starting to look like something. I can kind of keep defining as much as I want all these different little details and stuff. But he's starting to look pretty cool. I just like the drawing kind of method. She's the eyedropper sometimes to just grab stuff. I don't know why I switched that. There we go. The Alt button is stuck down. There we go. Alright. Now back to black here. And just kind of start really building in some of these shapes. A little bit of light coming up from the bottom. Why those shiny earrings? Those are going to need to be defined a little bit more. Like I said before, this kind of gray scale stage, I mean, take it as long as you want, get as detailed as you want, because it doesn't really matter. You could do all this with color too. It's just kind of building your own style, and I'm always changing the way I make pictures. This is just kind of something I've sort of started to figure out recently. Eyebrows, I don't know, do goblins have eyebrows? Probably. Just a little bit touch of eraser in those eyes. There. These probably need some wrinkles. With these kind of fantasy creatures, you have to decide how much or how little human kind of qualities they have. Define more about where the edge of that hat is. I feel like this, whatever this is called, wrap around the hat here, could use some texture, so just something like that. Crank this brush back up real big. Just hardly touch it on there. For a little bit of shadow. There we go. And again, eraser, and just really make the top of that hat bump out. I know I've said it a lot of times already, but how far you want to take this. Well, I gotta define this hand. How far you want to take this is really up to you, and how much you want to render in color, and how much you want to render in grayscale like this. So it's pretty fun to kind of create. I like the shapes that we got going. He's looking pretty cool. And maybe I'll just do one video of the grayscale and then maybe another of the color. We'll see. We'll see how far I get and how much time we are into it. I don't know why my Alt button keeps doing that, but I just kind of want to get some of these tones in down here. That brush is too small. You'll see it's all kind of big strokes, all mostly zoomed out right now. We can kind of zoom in to really get the details in later. He's got some kind of hair on his arms and stuff. There we go. Kind of neglecting the hands because I can't decide how kind of human or non-human I want these hands to look. And that's just part of the background. The thing I need to do is add a little bit more tone to the fishing rod too, like these little wraps can. I like how the guides are just kind of on the rod are all spaced all crazy. This is not really much different than actually drawing with charcoal or something where you can kind of add and take away all the time. You can just kind of build in the different shapes with highlights and lowlights and just constantly going back and forth. And just like charcoal, this is a pretty fun way to work. I mean, I'm not sure what time we started here, but we haven't been running that long. And starting to really build something fun here. And yeah, I really like these big kind of shadows. His hat is just my favorite part, I think, of the whole thing. His feather, we kind of lost some definition. But I think all those kind of going back and forth between defined and not defined and re-grabbing some highlights or lowlights back and forth is really interesting. And yeah, I can push these shadows kind of as far as I want. If I don't like it, I can always bring it down later. This cheek is just a little bit dark, and this is all on the one layer so far. What we'll do is we'll go in with overlay layers after this and just go kind of over top. And that's how we'll add our color and detail and stuff later, is just by just doing layers over top. There should be some impact of some kind here from this hand coming across. There we go. And the waders, I haven't really touched it all down here, so I'm just going to kind of throw a bit of tone to those as well. And we'll just do a quick kind of zap over those with this guy. And I'm thinking we're going to kind of really focus our lighting kind of around the center of here anyway. So I'm not too worried about how things are going to look right now. I'm going to go kind of into a dark gray, and I'm going to get an airbrush, just whatever airbrush. I'm going to make it bigger, just get it fairly big. And I'm going to kind of tone down some areas. So like down here, we don't need to have as much contrast at the bottom as we do on the top. So I'm just going to kind of bring this all down a little bit. The fish trying to come down a little bit. But, you know, we want most of the focus to be kind of around that face. We've got the shadow from the hat should come kind of across the eyes. You can knock it all back. You can always bring those highlights back out if it's not quite what you wanted. It's nice to knock the value range down a little bit in kind of some places here and there. There you go, and then you can always go back in with the eraser, and you could even turn that into an airbrush too, and just kind of grab some more kind of highlights out again. And just going back and forth kind of adds some fun to things too. You don't want to get too glowy and kind of over airbrushy looking, but it's kind of a fun way to get going on a few things. So now I kind of got a black and white layer, and why don't we throw a little bit of color on there? We'll see how far we get. First we got to get into some kind of khaki color. So this layer is going to be an overlay layer. And I'll continue to use some of my same brushes. I can use an airbrush if I wanted, but I'm going to go back to my main brush I've been using. There we go. We're just overlaying. So it's just going to kind of, overlay it. It's going to kind of work with what's there and just kind of add some tone to it, just like that. And the opacity on this brush is turned way down, so I can turn that up a little bit. And how much of this I want to do is up to, how bright this needs to be. That's up to me. This is going to be kind of just a local color, so the area before and shadow and all that. So I'm just going to throw a little bit of that local color on. He should be kind of a greenish tone. I don't want him to be too greenish. Otherwise it just looks too like cartoony, I guess. But then again, he is a goblin, so. Yeah, just a bit of color here to start getting some tone. I don't know if goblins actually should kind of have hair. I don't know. I'm not a big goblin guy, I guess. Alright, here we go. This is going to go all under here. And I'm not worried about those eyes or anything either. They can all have that same tone for now. And we'll bring that across there. There we go. He's starting to look pretty goblin-y. Hair, hat, maybe like a brown color too. Even these dark areas, I may as well give it a little bit of tone, just to kind of tell us what color belongs there. And that shirt, creamy color, I think. Kind of just like a cream sort of color. Makes his vest look a little bit yellow, but I'm okay with that. Waders, I guess goblins probably wouldn't wear green. Maybe. Just like a dark greeny gray color. They're going to be mostly kind of faded out, I think, anyway. So. And then we got a couple elements of gold here, so we're going to go kind of into the orangey, yellowy gold. Shrink that brush down a bit, get those earrings, gold belt buckle, gold, guides on the fishing rod. And the fishing rod itself can be, or we're going to say it was kind of cane or something, so kind of a cane-ish sort of color. The wraps we can change, whatever, later, if we want. Alright, he's starting to look pretty good. Feather in his hat, may as well make it interesting. There we go. It's a pretty good start. He's looking pretty neat. Background color, I'm thinking like a almost ultramarine blue. Yeah. Because I got so much texture back there already, I can probably just go and airbrush it on. And again, this is an overlay layer, so it's just kind of working with what's already there, adding some tone to it. And I can even use this airbrush to even, we'll do a multiply layer after. Let's delete those. You'll see I use a lot of different layers, and then I'll just kind of flatten it as I go. I'm not too worried about getting this on him at all. I'm just kind of getting it on. Make him stand out a little bit more. Makes those colors, like those warm yellows and cream colors, really pop out by just making all this a little bit bluish. And you know, just I'm remembering that, like, if I think this is too much, I can always just crank all these colors down a little bit. But I'm thinking we're off to a pretty good start here. I'm gonna go add another layer, just a normal layer. Keep this airbrush running, and I'm gonna go darker, less color saturation, and I can just kind of touch them up like this if I want. The other way to do it, which is, you know, just different, is you can use multiply, and then we'll kind of mix with the color that's there. But I kind of want to make some of them disappear a little bit. It's all kind of the same kind of edge right now, and I can bring all these pieces back later. So I'm just going to kind of go in some kind of shadowy areas and just add some of that background color to it. And even areas like this where I want to just knock it back a bit, I can do that. I want the hat to really pop, so I can just add a bit of that back there. I can just get in with the eraser and bring stuff back as I go too. And if I wanted to give him like kind of a glowy aura, we could do that too, but he's just a fisherman. He's not magical, I don't think. I don't think he's a magical fisherman. There we go. Yeah, there we go. It's starting to knock some of those spots back a little bit where it just doesn't need to be so defined. This part of the face should all be kind of dark from the hat, and that hat can be that same kind of even light. There we go. Just kind of bringing some of it down a little bit. You don't want it to get too kind of fuzzy and airbrushy, and if it does, that's fine, because we can always go back and find it, but I just want to keep knocking it back a little bit more, kind of testing the limits a little bit for now. Alright, another layer. Back to normal. Smaller, darker brush. Let's go into brush here, and we'll go back to this guy, shrink her down a little bit, and we can even zoom in a bit now. You can see it's really just a big mess once you get a bit closer, but this brush is too small. And I can just start to bring that around. And that's it for part one. Look forward to part two, where we finish kind of finalizing this piece, getting some more color and some more detail. All right, next time.